having some difficulty, as you know, but I think that a lot of the difficulty is because of the tariffs that they're having. And in addition to that, we're putting a tremendous amount of money. You saw trade deficits went down last month. Everyone was trying to find out why. Well, we're taking in a lot of tariff money, and it's going right to the bottom line, and it has reduced the trade deficit. So we'll see what happens with China. I think we have a very good chance. Their numbers are down, but I don't want that. I want their numbers. I want them to do great. But we've been losing anywhere from $300 to $500 billion a year with China for many, many years. And again, like other things, many presidents should have done this before me, and nobody did. So we're doing it. Go ahead, please. Me? Right here, this gentleman.
Chad O'Carroll from NK News, Specialist North Korea News.
Good.
What's your message for President Moon, who has effectively reached the glass ceiling as far as inter-Korean cooperation is concerned due to sanctions? And what's next for U.S. ROK military drills?
Well, I like President Moon very much. We have a great relationship. Believe it or not, I have a great relationship with almost every leader. A lot of people find that hard to understand, but I do. But some take advantage of our country like you wouldn't believe. And when they know I know it, which I know in every case, maybe it sort of freezes them up a little bit. But we do. We have a lot of good relationships. We'll be calling President Moon very soon as I get by the phone on the plane. And he'll be one of the first calls. I'll be calling Prime Minister Abe of Japan, telling him about where we are and what we're doing. But I'll be making those calls. No, he's working very hard. President Moon is working very hard. He'd love to see a deal. And he's been very helpful. Okay? Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Yang Sheng, reporter from Global Times, China. I would like to ask you that what are you expecting China to do in the next step to mediate your relationship with North Korea? Thank you.
To use China?
Yeah, from China.
Well, we do. I mean, China's been very helpful. President Xi is a great leader. He's a highly respected leader all over the world, and especially in Asia. And he's helped us, Mike, I would say he's helped us a lot, right? Yes, I actually called him just recently to say, hey, you know, whatever you can do on this. But he has been very helpful at the border, and he's been very, very helpful with, I think, North Korea generally. Could he be a little more helpful? Probably. But he's been excellent. Go ahead, please. No, yeah, please.
Sorry. Maybe Hallie next.
That's okay. You're friends.
Thanks, Mr. President. Did you commit with Chairman Kim to a next summit during your term?
No.
Okay.
We'll see if it happens. It happens. I have not committed.
They are at this point, some would say, a nuclear power. Do you accept North Korea as a nuclear armed state, at least for the time being? And are you thinking about reimposing the military exercises with South Korea, or will you keep in a freeze?
Well, you know, the military exercises, I gave that up quite a while ago because it costs us $100 million every time we do it. We fly these massive bombers in from Guam, and when I first started, a certain general said, oh, yes, sir, we fly them in from Guam. It's right next door. Well, right next door is 7 hours away. And then they come and they drop millions of dollars of bombs, and then they go back. But we would spend, we spent hundreds of millions of dollars on those exercises, and I hated to see it. I thought it was unfair. And frankly, I was sort of the opinion that South Korea should help us with that. You know, we're protecting South Korea. I think they should help us with that. So those exercises are very expensive. And I was telling the generals, I said, look, you know, exercising is fun and it's nice, and they play the war games. And I'm not saying it's not necessary, because at some levels it is, but at other levels it's not. But it's a very, very expensive thing. And, you know, we do have to think about that, too. But when they spend hundreds of millions of dollars on those exercises, and we don't get reimbursed, we're spending a tremendous amount of money on many countries, protecting countries that are very rich, that can certainly afford to pay us, and then some. And those countries, by the way, and those countries know that it's not right, but nobody's ever asked them before, but I've asked them, and we're doing We're gaining a lot of money. We picked up over $100 billion just in NATO over the last 2 years. $100 billion more has come in. And we're doing that with a lot of countries. You'll be seeing that a lot. Yes, sir, please. Yeah, 1 second, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. You have a personal relationship, and I believe Vice President Pence does, with the family of Otto Warmbier. I'm wondering, you've talked about this week's about Kim Jong-un being my friend. You called him on Twitter. You said you have a great relationship. Have you in Singapore or here confronted Kim Jong-un about Otto Warmbier's death?
I have.
Asked him to take responsibility. And what did he say to you? And why do you call him your friend?
I have, and I have talked about it. And I really don't think it was in his interest at all. I know the Warmbier family very well. I think they're an incredible family. What happened is horrible. I really believe something very bad happened to him, and I don't think that the top leadership knew about it. And when they had to send him home, by the way, I got the prisoners back, I got the hostages back, and Otto was one of the hostages, but Otto came back in shape that was not even to be talked about. I thought it was horrible. Now, the others came back extremely healthy, but Otto came back in a condition that was just terrible. And I did speak about it, and I don't believe that he would have allowed that to happen. It just wasn't to his advantage to allow that to happen. Those prisons are rough. They're rough places, and bad things happened. But I really don't believe that he was, I don't believe he knew about it.
Did he tell you that he did not, did Kim Jong-un tell you?
He felt badly about it. I did speak to him. He felt very badly, but he knew the case very well, but he knew it later. And, you know, you got a lot of people, a big country, a lot of people. And in those prisons and those camps, you have a lot of people. And some really bad things happened to Otto. Some really, really bad things.
Why are you on
But he tells me that he didn't know about it, and I will take him at his word. Yes, ma'am, go ahead, please. Please, go ahead in the back. No, in the back, behind you. Thank you.
Mr. President, Schwarzman Valentina, Sputnik News Agency. Have you discussed the issue of possible inspections to North Korea nuclear sites during your negotiations?
You're going to have to speak a little louder. And where are you from?
Russia, Sputnik News Agency.
Okay.
Have you discussed the issue of possible inspections to North Korea's nuclear sites during your talks with the chairman?
Why don't you answer that, ma'am?
No?
I can't. Good.
Inspections to nuclear sites. International inspections, yes.
Inspections on North Korea?
Yeah, inspections
We'd be
to
able,
the nuclear
We'd be able
sites.
to do that very easily. We have that set up, so we would be able to do that very easily. The inspections on North Korea will take place, and if we do something with them, we have a schedule set up that is very good. We know things that, as David was asking about certain places and certain sites, there are sites that people don't know about that we know about. We would be able to do inspections, we think, very, very successfully. Yes, ma'am, please, please. Yes, go ahead, please. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
A lot of people here, by the way. A big group of people.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Khan News Israel, Mr.
Good.
President.
Good.
Following this engagement with North Korea, you're trying to bring peace to the Middle East.
Right.
The peace plan is about to be introduced in the near future, and as you have mentioned before...
Well, we hope. We hope. We're working hard on the peace plan, and we hope it will be.
I believe you do, but as you mentioned before, it will require Israel to make compromises to the Palestinians. As far as you know, is Prime Minister Netanyahu willing to make these compromises, which are very much needed? And a second question, Mr. Netanyahu is about to be indicted today with corruption allegations. Do you wish to tell him something on this occasion?
Well, I just think he's been a great prime minister, and I don't know about his difficulty, but you're telling me something that, you know, people have been hearing about, but I don't know about that. I can say this, that he's done a great job as prime minister. He's tough, he's smart, he's strong. He is very defensive. His military has been built up a lot. They buy a lot of equipment from the United States, and they pay for it. Of course, we give them tremendous, as you know, subsidy also. $4 billion is a lot each year. But they are They've been very, very good. They've been incredible, actually, in many ways. But there is a chance for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. And, you know, it's interesting. All my life, I've heard that the toughest of all deals, when they talk about tough deals, we all like deals, but the toughest of all deals would be peace between Israel and the Palestinians. They say it's like the impossible deal. I'd love to be able to produce it. We'll see what happens. You know, we were paying the Palestinians a lot of money, and I ended that about 2 years ago because they weren't saying the right things. And I said, why would we pay somebody that's not saying nice things about us and not really wanting to go to the peace table? And they've been much better, and we'll see what happens.
But
I think we
Netanyahu
really,
made concessions?
I think we have actually a good shot at peace between Israel and the Palestinians. Yeah, go
Netanyahu
ahead,
made
please,
concessions?
sir.
Mr. President, I'm from China. My question is, do you still believe it is possible that the North Korea and U.S. relation could be like the U.S. and the Vietnam relation in the future?
You have to go again?
Do you still believe that it is possible the relation between U.S. and North Korea in the future could be like the relation between U.S. and Vietnam?
Yeah, I think we're going to have, we have very, very good relations. And by the way, speaking of, you mentioned Japan, we have a lot of good things happening with Japan. We have trade talks started. For years, Japan has been sending millions and millions of cars in, and as you know, it's not been a very fair situation for the United States. We're starting trade talks with Japan. They actually started about 3 months ago, and I think we'll have a very good deal for the United States. But that's been a very unfair situation. Prime Minister Abe understands that, and that's fine. Yes, sir, please, back there.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Ching Yichang with Shanghai Media Group. Do you think the next meeting could be soon or might take some time?
Well, I can't tell you. I mean, it might be soon. It might not be for a long time. I can't tell you. I would hope it would be soon, but it may not be for a long time. I could have done a deal today, but it would have been a deal that wouldn't have been a deal that would have been something that I wouldn't have been happy about. Mike would not have been happy about. We had some pretty big options, but we just felt it wasn't appropriate, and we really want to do it right. Yes, in the back, in the back. Yes, ma'am, please.
Debbie Edward, ITV News. At which point did it become clear to you that you wouldn't be getting a deal here in Hanoi? The language from yourself and Kim Jong-un was very positive last night and even this morning, and therefore was it a mistake to
No,
come
I think
here?
the language was good all throughout. The language has been good even now, but you know, I don't go by language because we had probably the toughest language in the history of diplomacy, if you call it diplomacy, at the beginning, and yet we became very friendly. I don't believe there was any tougher language ever than that. But again, this was something that should have been handled by other presidents long before me.
Was it a
And long before they had the kind of power that they have, but it wasn't. It should have been done by many. I'm not just blaming the Obama administration, which, by the way, it did nothing, absolutely nothing on North Korea. It allowed things that happened and to happen that were very inappropriate. But I'm not blaming the Obama administration. I'm blaming many administrations. Something should have happened. But I don't think the rhetoric's been bad at all. Initially, it was horrible, but now it's been very good. All right, one more. How about you? Go ahead, please. Please, go ahead. Go ahead.
South Korea. Chong-an came from South Korea.
Good.
Channel A, Dongaevo, South Korean media outlet here. I'd like to ask you, you said that we do not particularly know when they will be, North Korean leader will be willing to come to the table and take the actions that's been required. If that's the case, would the U.S. be willing to strengthen the sanctions and perhaps put the pressure on North Korea to move forward?
I don't want to comment on that. I can just tell you this, that we have very strong sanctions. I don't want to talk about increasing sanctions. They're strong. They have a lot of great people in North Korea that have to live also, and that's important to me. And I would say this, my whole attitude changed a lot because I got to know, as you know, Chairman Kim very well, and they have a point of view also. So I don't want to really talk about that. I just think that hopefully for the sake of South Korea, for the sake of Japan, and frankly for the sake of China, I was talking to President Xi, who really is a man that gets the respect of a lot of people. I say, you can't love having a nuclear state right next to China. And he doesn't. He really doesn't. He would like to see that problem solved, too. So that's it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to get on a plane and fly back to a wonderful place called Washington, D.C. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, fellas. Thank you very much.
Well, that was quite a press conference from President, who you have to say was visibly, tangibly muted in those comments after expressing so many high hopes, showing some what appeared to be rapport with the North Korean leader in the moments leading up, and then abruptly turning around and walking away, as he said repeatedly. He called it a friendly walk away. And of course, some of that comes straight out of Art of the Deal. When you got to walk away, you walk away. But he is leaving for a second time without a substantive nuclear agreement.
Without a substantive nuclear agreement, I know our guests and our analysts will say the first time in Singapore was important for building a foundation, but this time it is important for leaving with nothing, not even a peripheral deal.
Right.
And I think that's really important. I think just to sum up what the president said, he says that the North Koreans, Kim Jong-un, wanted, in his words, sanctions lifted in their entirety, and we could not do that. They offered to denuke, as he said, but not as far as we wanted to go. He said that Kim Jong-un had promised not to restart any of the nuclear or missile testing, and that he takes him at his word on that, and that he hopes that their continued good relationship, which he continues to stand by, is the sort of bedrock for continuing some kind of progress on this.
And it's interesting that the president, you know, clearly sanctions was the deciding factor here, that they couldn't get to an agreement. But the president was pressed as to whether he is still holding North Korea to the same standard he and his administration defined from early on, which is complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization. And the president, notably, I think, said, I don't want to go there, in effect. I don't want to put myself in that position. And then, I'm quoting from him, we want a lot to be given up. We want a lot to be given up. He does not reiterate the administration's stand that the entire nuclear program must be given up. That was a significant moment.
Should we just have about a minute before we have to go to the top of the hour? From your perspectives, what were the standouts? And is it very disappointing? Is there hope for the future?
I mean, it's clearly how much sanctions, how much denuclearization. And it looked like it's not enough on either side. It seemed to me that North Korean side wanted to give up Yongbyon, but in return they wanted entire sanctions, which was not acceptable to our side. If you remember, they had promised to give up Yongbyon twice before.
Which is their plutonium processing reactor.
Yeah. Once in a agreed framework and once in six-party talk.
I would just say for President Trump, this is a hard lesson in the limits of a good personal relationship with Kim Jong-un, and also a lesson in the complexities of this situation.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you're watching CNN, and we're going to be back in a moment with more coverage of this breaking news stories right after a break.